Hi everyone, welcome to part 3 of our presentation series on JDeveloper's business service integration presented by eFlux. My name is Saad Pesar and I'm going to be your host for this series. As you remember, in previous parts we discussed briefly on the architecture of business service integration inside JDE along with our sample scenario in our business function. In this part we will be taking a look at constructing our business service object using Java. But before we dive any further, let's return to our sample scenario and take a look at the webservicex.net, which is providing web service for our sample scenario. As you can see, webservicex.net provides a lot of useful web services which are distributed among many different categories for easier access. The specific web service that we are looking for can be found under Standards and Lookup Data. On this page, you can find UK Location Web Service. Click on it. As you can see, this web service comes in 4 different functional variants. The specific method that we are interested in is called Get UK Location by Town. After selecting this function, you can easily see that website provides all standard forms of communication protocols including SOAP 1.1 and 1.2, and of course the standard HTTP GET and POST methods as well. For our sample scenario, we will be using the standard HTTP GET method, which requires the town name as the input parameter. Let's quickly take a look at this web service output. As you can see here in this URL, I have provided the town name, and in return it provides us with county name and its postcode. Now, having reviewed this, let's quickly return to OMW and begin construction of our business service object. So this is where we left off. As you can see, we have our data structure and business function object from previous parts. Now let's add business service object. Click on Add button and select business function as the object type. We will be following the similar input approach as we did in our business function, except that for the source language, we need to specify BSSV as the option. This will also enable a new option, package prefix, for which we need to specify oracle.e1.bssv. Press OK to save your changes. Once created, let's now select Designs Tools tab. At this point, if you have not already configured your JDeveloper path, simply click on the JDeveloper Install Path button and specify the location to your JDeveloper executable. If you have already configured it, simply click on the Invoke JDeveloper to launch JDeveloper and begin constructing your business service object. Over here inside JDeveloper, as you can see that JD Edwards has created a project for us with the same name as our business service object. Before diving further into construction of our business service, let's first take a high-level look at the basic Java classes that we need to construct for our business service. As you can see here, there are 2 primary Java classes that we need to concern about here for construction of our business service. The first is a ValueObject class, which represents the communication packet that business service will receive and responds with to our business function. The second object represents the business service class itself, which represents our primary class of execution. Now let's return back to JDeveloper and let's create these individual components. So coming back, our first objective is to create our ValueObject class. Just to recall, our ValueObject class represents our communication packet that we will be receiving from our business function, and will also serve similarly for returning information back to our business function. So let's quickly take a look at the XML packet in our business function. So here you can see our XML packet that we are sending out through XRCS API to our business service, and it will be received as an object of ValueObject class. Having said that, what we will be shortly doing is we will be creating respective Java properties inside our ValueObject for every element described here in our XML packet. So let's head back and create our ValueObject class. Now inside JDeveloper, let's right click on our project and select New. Next, from the categories hierarchy, select Enterprise 1. This will provide you a list of all the Java classes provided by JD Edwards. Select Business Function ValueObject class and press OK. On the next dialog, you need to select your business function for which you want to create your ValueObject class. Provide your business function object name in the object name field and press the Find button. And then select our business function. Next, from the list of the attributes, select all the attributes by left clicking on the individual attributes. Press the Next button. On the next dialog, provide a name for your ValueObject class and mark its scope as internal. Press Finish button. So now you can see that the wizard has created a class for us that derives from ValueObject class, and it's also serializable, as this object needs to be used over Java's communication APIs, which relies heavily on serialization. Also, you can see that wizard has created individual attributes for our ValueObject class as a standard Java data types. Next, we need to create our getter and setter methods for all the attributes that we just created for easier accessibility in other areas of our business service. So right click inside your code and select Generate Accessors. Simply select the topmost checkbox to include all the attributes and press OK button, and JDeveloper will generate accessor methods for our attributes. Now that's done. We will now move to creating our primary business service class. Let's right click on our project and select New. Next, from the categories hierarchy, select Enterprise 1. Select Business Service class and press OK. On the next dialog, we now need to provide a name for our class. We will name it Validate UK Address. We also need to provide our primary method name that needs to be invoked by our business function. If you remember, we named it getValidateAddress. So we will specify it here as well. Next, we need to provide the input name class, which is the ValueObject class that we created in the previous step. So simply click on Browse button and select our ValueObject class. Once done, press the OK button to complete the wizard. So here you can see that the wizard has generated a skeleton code for our business service class that we will be modifying shortly. But before that, let's take a close look at the generated code. Here you can see our primary function getValidateAddress, which serve as the entry point for our business service class. It receives our ValueObject class as an input parameter. Next, all business services code must be enclosed between a call to the start internal method and finish internal method, which allows appropriate allocation and release of the resources required for business service execution. Next, we see the construction of an object of type even message list, which, if you have observed, is also the return type of our business service class. This object is used to return application error messages, warnings, and informational messages back to our business function. We will now modify this code. For our convenience, the section has been marked with To Do section by the wizard, where we need to place our custom code. To save time, we have already entered our custom code. So now let's take a close look at it. The first thing that we have done is we have added another function in our business service class called ValidateAddress, which receives the town name as the input. In a nutshell, this function calls our external web service from webservice.x.net and parts the received response and returns back the information as our ValueObject instance. Let's move ahead and let's see how it's done. We first created our string variable that stores our web service URL address, and then we created our return ValueObject instance. Next, we will append the URL address with the passed in town name so that we get a complete HTTP get URL. Then we create a Java URL object by using our web service URL variable. Then, using the HTTP URL connection class, we will open a connection with the web service and then receive a response from it using the getResponseCode method. Once we receive the information successfully, we begin by retrieving the input stream object from the URL connection object and connect it with a buffered reader so that we can read the response line by line and store it in another string variable. Once we are done retrieving the response, we close our input stream object. Next, we begin processing the response string by first escaping all the HTML tags from the response string. Then next, we will begin with looking for a valid response. Let's quickly see what do we mean by a valid response. If you take a close look at this web service output, if I provide an invalid town name, the output gets an empty new dataset tag. So coming back to the code, you can see that we have created multiple constants for our valid tags that we need to search in our output. And you can observe that tag_success responds to a valid new dataset tag. So returning back to our logic, if we get a successful tag_success in the response string, we set the return ValueObject response attributes with a success value, and then we begin by retrieving all the response elements such as county name and postcode and set them in our return ValueObject instance. Now let's exit from our custom function validateAddress and return back to our getValidateAddress function. Here you can see that we have simply added a call to our custom validateAddress function and set its response back to our input ValueObject instance. For some testing purposes, we have also printed the return ValueObject instance attributes. This concludes our functionality of our business service. In the next part, we will combine and test our business function and business service and see how developers can test their services before rolling them in PY or production environment. So thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next video.